All right. Just think of it as practice for when we got millions of fans.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you cut out like for a long time there.
Oh, sorry. I was. I apologize. I was setting up the stream.
Oh yeah. It was just like a freeze frame of your face, and you're just like,
Oh yeah, nice.
yeah.
All right,
Right.
you're on. You're good to go. Have at it.
All right. Do I look overexposed as hell? Or do I look okay?
Beautiful.
Beautiful. All right, let me get skipped here. All right. Welcome to the show. This is The Break with Matthew Stivender. Today, I wanted to jump into the philosophical ramifications of our current marketing system. Now, for those of you that don't know, previous conversation last week, we got into a bunch of different stuff. We kind of jumped around here. And so I wanted to kind of just go over like a bigger, broader topic so that we can have a lot of stuff kind of moving forward. So the way that our current marketing is set up is really, really tied to our current set of assumptions that we have within our culture. And there's no way to get around the biggest assumption, which is the materialistic paradigm. Now, for those of you that don't know what I'm exactly referring to, the materialistic paradigm is this set of assumptions saying that, oh, there is a physical universe, it is external, and that is real. And this may seem like a crazy kind of thing to kind of question, like, oh, there's a physical external universe, and we're kind of questioning that entire thing. But what if I told you that this physical paradigm has been scientifically proven to not be correct for nearly 100 years? And they seem kind of like just crazy. Like, how could this not be well known? Well, we have to actually break another assumption here, and that is that society, kind of broader kind of picture here, beyond just a current culture, we assume that our society brings the best knowledge from all of our different sources, from academia, from the arts, from literature, from wherever. And it says that these best truths and the greatest knowledge that is out there is just going to trickle down into our news broadcasts, into our YouTube videos, into wherever. But that's just not the case, because it does not serve people who are trying to manipulate a lot of the marketing channels. So what serves their best interest? Well, I already said it. It is marketing. Oh, sorry, it is the physical paradigm. And I'm talking about the metaphysical paradigm, not just the materialistic paradigm of like wanting cars and a bunch of cash and have big houses and stuff like that. That definitely goes along with it, because the metaphysical paradigm has to be set first before you can actually want all those different types of things. Okay. So I want to go into a little bit of a rant, I guess, about the other side of this. And I think that the best place to start with that is the quantum theory field, because it's very much the forefront of like this entire scientific enterprise kind of coming around on itself to kind of do introspectiveness on its materialistic paradigm and seeing that it's actually false. And one of the greatest quotes, I think, is from Niels Bohr, where he says, everything that we call real is made up of things that cannot be regarded as real. And it really kind of just shakes you down when you think about it and you say, okay, these people have gone all the way they could with the science that they had 100 years ago, okay, mind you. And they have found that all of this scientific investigation led them actually to go and seek out answers beyond a lot of these scientific kind of rational materialistic motives, and to see things in mysticism, to see things in spirituality that kind of connect the dots for them, if you will. So with all that said, I don't think I have a ton of time around doing a whole bunch of other kind of things, then it makes it very easy for you to be like, oh, well, there's nothing really else for me to do. A purpose and all these more existential kind of things. It doesn't. It doesn't really pertain to you because the world is just some physical dumb matter, and therefore, what else is there to do than just go and buy a car and a house and sense because there's not really this higher kind of ideal of spirituality. So with all that said, I'm sure that in the discussion, or just a little bit of talk about it, it'll become a little bit more clear, like what the kind of grind is. But I wanted to get into some of the things that kind of led me to this kind of understanding of what direction I think we're going with that by a couple of examples. So I started off kind of doing a little bit of online marketing, and I learned from a good YouTuber named Alex Becker. And in one of his courses, in one of his little things, he had a phrase that really stuck out to me, and that was sell them what they want, but give them what they need. And so I kept thinking about this, like, oh, okay, that's my way of kind of rationalizing, like, oh, okay, I can kind of, coerce them a little bit into doing this thing, and I can actually give them what they actually need. And then, we can kind of move things forward. Obviously, people don't like being tricked, so that kind of just didn't work for me. Another thing that kind of jumped out to me was Fabian, if I can pronounce the name right, Fabian Gerholt, who is a brand um, kind of like just a brand like designer and brand, specialist. I forget which term he wanted to be called, but he wrote a book. In his book, he talks about how there's a lot of these different brands out there that are selling commodity items that not necessarily breaking ground here. I mean, they're not making this new crazy app that can help you, fly after the moon or something like that. I mean, this is just like kind of basic stuff. And he found that a lot of these brands that are really catching wind are doing a lot of things that I would call more green. So they're going to be a lot more authentic, a lot more straightforward, and they're just focused on a different kind of demographic, a different kind of socioeconomic climate. So we can kind of see that in terms of what I talked about last week, which was the World Values Survey. And of course, that goes along lines of, a lot of other theories in developmental psychology. Another one that I want to point out, Joseph D. Block, he had an interview on RT. And in that interview, he talked about a lot of different stuff with the interviewer. And one of the things that really stuck out to me, him being one of the leaders of, the new kind of movement within business management, being more what they call teal enterprise or, uh, non-manager kind of structure. So it's very much self-managed. There's a lot of that kind of movement. He was in one of the companies, Beardsword, that really kind of pioneered this. But what he liked to point out was that he's like, I don't like marketing. Like, why do we need to even learn about marketing? Why do we even need to think about, doing any kind of marketing kind of setup? Um, he didn't go into that much depth. But you can tell that he just didn't like the entire system as it is, and he's like, "Why do we need to trick people?" Those are his words. So I was kind of connecting the dots here of like, okay, there's all these different type of leaders in these different fronts, and then Frederick Lau, who actually wrote a book, and Beardsword was in it, talking about self-managed companies and a little bit of integral theory and all that kind of stuff. But he's looking at the future of business management and business structures, and what he found is that a lot of them have the same kind of marketing setup, which was here's our product. Do you like it? Do you not like it? That's what it is. Like there's not really any elaborate sales funnel leading into some other type of thing to go buy some upsale product or whatever. It was just very simple. It's like, do you want it? Here you go. And then they would just kind of sell it, which I think is pretty interesting. Along those lines, it's actually, it's interesting how they create products. They actually kind of have an intuitive urge of what kind of products they want to develop, and then they kind of develop that and then kind of find a way to sell it just by plainly explaining it, which I think is pretty cool. In one of his videos, though, he gets into a little bit of a thing where he talks about, is your company a company that is built for the future? Like, is it really kind of like a company that is kind of forward looking? This isn't the words that he uses, this is kind of the words I'm using. But he talks about in this video how if you were to make a 15-minute video about how your product is being built and the whole life cycle of it, the full cost, as some people would say, then how would that be perceived to your customer? Say like a bottling company making soda, it's like they have all the plastic that they get from the oil company, and then they make the bottles with it, and they have a bunch of sugar, a bunch of syrup, and they blast it into there, and then they ship it out, and then somebody consumes it, and then like all these different types of things. Like if all of that was taken into place, how would your customer take that? Kind of interesting to think about. And that goes along the lines of all the other people that I was talking about, which is the deep block, like why we have to trick people. It's like, here it is, this is what we got, with all the other kind of TO type companies. With Fabian, when he talks about being transparent and authentic and all that kind of stuff. And you see a lot of different parallels here of how marketing is actually moving. And it's moving less towards the pizzazz and the details of uh, the shininess of a product, all the extra stuff with it. And it's really just about like, what are you actually getting? What's the value? Here you go. Do you want it? Yes or no? So with all that said, I just like to propose an idea out there. Not to say that I will do this or this is what's going to happen or anything like that. But I feel like modern marketing, or at least like what we're transitioning into, is going to be more of an audited marketing type of structure. So that means you're going to put out, let's say, a 15-minute video, and then a third-party nonprofit organization, preferably, is going to look through that and say, okay, this is absolutely truthful and clear to what the mission of your company is, to what the actual outlook of your product and what the product's deliverable is going to be. And we can pass that off and say, okay, you have the stamp of approval, there you go. So that's what I see a lot of this marketing structure kind of moving towards. And it's going to appeal to a lot more people that just want things, cut and dry. And it's going to appeal to things that are going to be a lot more authentic and going to be a lot more familiar and a lot more comfortable with a little bit of spirituality and a little bit of like that woo-woo kind of stuff. That's just my kind of outlook on what's going to be moving forward. Of course, this is a slow-moving ship, and of course, this thing has to actually change direction. But that is where I see the future of marketing moving towards, and that's what I have to say for my expose. And yeah, we'll leave it open for people to criticize.
I got a question.
Yes. I know I got laid a lot out there, and I was like, but yeah, go for it.
So, you brought up like total cost and people, people caring about what's in their product or how it's made, or kind of what goes into it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, and kind of the marketing that goes around along with that. I'm wondering, I could see a potential of two things happen, and probably a gray area of infinite. But one potential is that well, my immediate gut reaction is, well, a lot of the things A lot of those processes of like plugging in stuff that quote unquote people care about. Oftentimes those are kind of like niche things. They're not the mass. They're not done in mass yet, right? They're coming on board. They're building steam, that type of stuff. And a lot of the times those things come with an additional cost. And so some of the time, the reason they're not in a product is because, well, if you put them in, that would drive the cost of the product up. Therefore, we kept them out because we knew people they didn't care about them that much. On the other end of the spectrum, like, with kind of your thought on maybe the type of marketing, well, yeah, there's additional cost there, but the glitz and glamour is gone, and so we're not paying for that anymore. So it's a net negative, or maybe a net neutral, or whatever. I'm wondering, like, I get conflicted over like what's driving the ship. Is it I'm not sure if I'm making any sense. Is like, is the consumer dictating the product that they want, or is are they being pushed a product that some entity or opinion is pushing to them, or is there kind of a an equilibrium that those two kind of sides come to?
Well, I'd say it's both sides. I mean, I think one of the bigger kind of things that I didn't really talk about is that there's kind of a circle kind of going on. It's saying, okay, there's marketing is pushing this kind of deal. It's like, you want this, like I think like luxury cars are a good example of this. You want this luxury car because then you're gonna have this status symbol of being like, I am, this high up. Two things are happening there. One, you're basically saying it is better to be higher up in a social order. And a bunch of psychologists and drug users will be like, well, lobsters and blah blah blah, and it's always better, blah, whatever. They're pushing that kind of agenda. The second thing, which I think is a lot more interesting, is that what they're doing is they're broadcasting that signal, getting a wide net, and they're saying Mercedes, BMW, Audi, all these other luxury brands, they are casting this huge net to let everybody know that their symbol is the symbol of like wealth and opulence, all kind of stuff. There has to be a consensus over that kind of thing. So they are influencing culture in that sense. The other side of it is that people get that idea in their head and like they have to buy that, and they affect culture, and a bunch of movies get made with like Jaguars and stuff like that, and all that kind of stuff. So it is kind of this feedback loop where people kind of take the ideas from marketing and they take that as, okay, that's real, like that car right there, that is valuable because of this, so they create that kind of inflated kind of sense. And then culture along with itself is that it's going to influence it and say, hey, we actually want more green energy, we want more green cars, we want this kind of thing. So they're going to affect that, and they go out and they buy Teslas, for example, and they're going to want more EV kind of vehicles. That's where I kind of see that it's kind of moving in itself, kind of circulating around. Mm-hmm. And it's like two different forces where it's like the race to the bottom and saying, okay, we're going to market the cheapest products in the most, craziest way so that we can sell the most garbage and get away with like the highest profit margins. That's one thing. And the other side of it is human psychology and human development and social development that's trying to push ourselves up. So these two things are kind of at odds with each other. because a business is in the pursuit of enriching itself, not really pursuing truth. And society really kind of wants to find truth, kind of spread it, and do that whole type of thing. So I hope that kind of answers your question as who's really driving the. It's like,
no, I mean, the push pull.
Yeah.
Do you think one of the I have a hate relationship with Elon Musk. One of the things he says is that Tesla spends $0 on marketing. Do you think that's an accurate statement?
I mean, I haven't read their, annual report, or anything like that, or I don't really look too into depth about that.
I ask just because it's a brand that's got this like green. I mean, it's an electric car company. It's got this green kind of ness to it. But then I hear that guy see that, but then I see these events that he's putting on. I'm like, dude, that's marketing. Like, I don't care what bucket your accountant put it in. Like, I know what I'm seeing. I'm seeing marketing. I'm seeing someone spend millions of dollars to throw a metal ball at a window. Like, that's marketing.
Yeah.
But what he's telling me, what he's saying out to the world is, oh, we don't spend any dollars on marketing. I'm just like, dude, that's, I don't know. I know we're talking about marketing, but it strikes me as like this weird. I feel like he's trying to do what you're saying. He's trying to be like, we've got a great product, but in the end, they're hiding what they're doing in some respect.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Elon is a bit of I don't know. He's a bit of a weird case. I mean, because he thinks that. I mean, especially like when I hear him talk about like how we could possibly be living in a simulation and stuff like that. I'm looking at that from like a philosophical, and like, that does not make any sense. Like you're like the whole naive realist paradigm has to be really questioned. And I don't think that he's even bothering with that. But I mean, he's busy doing a whole bunch of stuff and shooting things into space. So it's like I don't really expect him to really be able to like tell me like all this stuff about Tesla and things like that. He doesn't really care. He cares about going to space. That's the way I see it. Like his accountants, his marketing team, is whatever he's got going on. I just don't see. I just don't take that too much to heart. Is what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Where do you put someone like him on the spiral dynamics scale?
Oh boy, could I call him donkey? I mean, his metaphysics definitely a lot more of that rational, logical kind of side, which I guess you would put it into like the orange bucket. And a lot of his complex thinking, systems thinking would kind of have that yellow kind of tinge to it. But his center of gravity, I think, is a kind of there in the center, but he doesn't. I don't think he's really that hippie-ish. He doesn't really subscribe to the whole go vegan kind of thing. I don't think. I mean, I don't really research him.
Yeah, fair enough.
He's got a big thing, but he's very much. I think a better way to look at him is if you look at the lectures of Russell Eckoff and his like move from the mechanical age into like the systems age, and when he talks about our interpretation of computers and how we think of them as machines when really they're not technically like machines. They don't put work in to change a material. What they're really doing is they're just operating with a bunch of different symbols, and they're just changing symbols. And in that way, we're creating, in a sense, like a mind. And so we're moving from, hard labor kind of mentality, like the 17th century, to the 20th century, up to, a lot more of this information age and automation. And we're having a lot of philosophical problems understanding what that actually means. Because if you take systems thinking and you apply it to certain things, like, oh, you get like good benefits, you get a lot of tangible benefits, a lot of these rationalogical kind of understanding benefits. And really, when you take it all the way to the point where you take it all the way to the symbolism kind of mode, you get into the super relative thing, this postmodern kind of understanding. And you look back, and I think that one of the best points that he had in one of his talks was he's like, your hand doesn't write, you write. If you want to prove that, chop your hand off, put it on the table, and watch what it does. And it's all working with the system. Your legs don't walk, you walk. And then he says, your brain doesn't think, you think. And then he jumps into a lot of other stuff in his speech. I was like, let's back it up there. Let's think about this. Your brain doesn't think, you think. And so that makes you understand that he had a good intuition and a good understanding of where the system's thinking kind of leads to, because you start to sprout out instead of having this material reductionist kind of view. So I see, kind of moving back all the way to the Kim out here, I see that he is kind of thinking in this systemic view, and it's kind of bleeding into like that kind of thought when he's talking about, you know, living in a simulation, but he hasn't incorporated completely a full systemic view and a full, like, you know, collaborative kind of mindset. Because otherwise the language would be different. You know, what he would be pursuing is going to be different, rather than all these hard material kind of pursuits of like blasting off into space, making electric cars, solar panels, and that kind of stuff. He'd be doing a little more social engineering with that. So
it's interesting. You know, I my kind of view on maybe where someone like him gets stuck, and actually some of the stuff in my head relates to like why people have different opinions on like COVID-19 and when we should go back to work, is really this this difference in understanding the applicability of data, and like a belief and an understanding in what does data tell me, and how much am I willing to base my opinion based on this, you know, these models and this math. And Elon to me is someone that like basically he gets some data points, there's a curve that gets drawn, and he's like, that thing's fact. And I think, you know, when I see a lot of people in marketing today, like that's how Google's designed. So if you think like that, you're really effective at using that tool. Versus like for myself, like it's not that I don't believe or trust in data, but I like there's a lot of holes. Like there's still, yeah, you've got some data points, but there's a ton unknown. And so like, I don't know, to me, that's like just that point, especially when relating to marketing, I feel like is a real big differential for how kind of people approach, like different approaches that people take to, you know, trying to sell, whether it's their product or their beliefs or, you know, whatever. I don't know.
mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess like to that point, I mean, there's a huge fan followership of Elon Musk, and it's not like that was you know, it just randomly happened, you know, because he is really a figure of that mindset, of that kind of thinking. Is that, you know, the numbers don't lie, you know, facts don't care about your feelings. You know, there's some other phrases out there, and there's some other people that kind of just push that kind of agenda,
Right.
of like, if you can't quantify it, then it doesn't exist. And that's kind of a dangerous metaphysics that's being pushed out there. And that's why, you know, instead of tackling the question, you know, where does existence actually come from? This, you know, like, what is the substance of reality? We push it back a layer by creating things like live in a simulation, or oh, we got to look at the numbers and like look at our brain and see how our brain is interpreting everything. And it's just, you know, it's just electrical signals interpreted by our brain. It's like, okay, Morpheus, like let's look at the quality of it, and the philosophical fuzzy soft stuff. It's just not even in the conversation.
one of the ways that I think about this, or I have been recently, is I come up with this like mock conversation talking to somebody like that, and it's basically like, okay, like, so there's an asteroid out in outer space, and I'm standing on this one specific place in Nebraska. My gut tells me some really amazing mathematician, he could tell me the percentage chance that on July 1st, 2025, if I'm standing in this exact spot, what's the percentage chance that I'm going to get hit by that asteroid, right? Somebody could calculate that based on models and whatever. So then the question becomes, so I'm going to go stand there, and at that point, the asteroid misses. Were you correct? Like, was the model correct? And then the question would be, well, if it hit me, were you correct? Like, there's no, because the percentages in that are so, it's going to be 99.99999 whatever, that it's not going to hit me or something like that. But if it doesn't, are you correct? If it does, are you correct? There's no way of actually proving something like that, because it's a 0-1 binary, type choice. But somebody like, they almost can't, I feel like people that get stuck in that logic almost can't see past the point where there actually is no way of proving whether or not your model or whatever is correct. And it just gets into this odd logic of, I'm gonna trust that I'm right. It's like, well, that's really counter to actually how you approach data. I don't know. Anyway, now I'm in
it's
the
really
left field.
backwards. It's kind of backwards, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like you have a faith in the numbers. You have a faith in rationalism, logic, science, math, and all those kinds of things. But we're saying, oh, no. See, it's scientifically like backed. It's scientifically proven that science is the right thing.
Exactly.
You're chasing your own tail. It's like, well, how do you prove the validity of your scientific chances?
It's like, what's the error of the error?
Yeah. So I mean, how do you police the policeman, in a sense? It's like, what's the base? I mean, these questions have been asked, time and time again. It's like,
sure.
It's just that what's in favor right now is, just the materialism, because it's so easy to just sell somebody. Like if I were to be like, okay, we got to get rid of, like, your, jealousy issue. It's like, okay, there's one way. Get rid of your girlfriend, find a girlfriend that's, very antisocial and introspective, and she's not going to talk to any other guy, and therefore you don't have to worry about your jealousy issue. And I'm going to help you because I know, the algorithm to find the best girls around. I can, scrape Tinder and Hinge and freaking whatever and find that kind of girl for you, and pay me a premium so I can find those select few girls, whatever. So it's really easy to sell that, rather than, hey, let's introspect, let's go inside, let's figure out why you're jealous, let's get rid of this jealousy, and then therefore we can actually solve that problem, and you don't have to deal with it for the rest of your life.
It's selfish.
There you go. I mean, it's kind of like that. I mean, it's like, okay, numbers and that kind of thing, and I can keep selling to you. I can upsell you, but like, oh, your girlfriend might leave you unless you have, this car, unless you have this, and like, it's like that, and this other thing, and it's like, it's all about that kind of thing. So it's got to be a cultural shift, a political kind of shift, I think, that we're going to kind of move into before we actually find a way out of this kind of, circular feedback loop of materialistic abundance and success seeking. So
what's happened, Kevin? I promise you we weren't talking about politics when you came in.
No, but I heard Elon Musk, so my interest was kind of piqued.
Yeah. What's your opinion on?
I don't know.
Do you think like him? Do you agree with him a lot?
I mean, say what you will. I mean, I like the guy.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
a
no
lot of
doubt
people
he's a
do, man.
genius.
Yeah.
Well, for Pete's sakes, I mean, he smoked weed on Joe Rogan, man. I mean, he gained a new audience off of that, right? That's just certified cool right there, man. Like, I could work for that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's
Certified
everything.
cool.
I think that really
I
countered
don't
the
trust a
whole.
man
Oh,
that's had hair plugs.
Musk has had hair plugs, really?
Yeah, man, go look at him in the 90s. He's bald.
Oh, I will say
Wow.
we are probably going to get off. So apologies to Matt. I knew he was involved in like the Tesla and the SpaceX stuff, but I had no idea he started PayPal. That was like a what?
Yeah.
Like this guy started PayPal? It's so weird. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
I know it's probably like
Yeah.
common knowledge to anyone
Yeah, have you
who
ever
has more than a passing interest in Elon Musk, but I was taken aback by that.
Peter Thiel's book 0 to 1 is a I do not like Peter Thiel at all, but the
Well,
book's
he's
actually
the
pretty
Facebook
good.
lender.
No, Peter Thiel was PayPal as well, though. He's part of the PayPal mafia, they call it. I don't know. There's like
Is
4 of
it?
those
Yeah.
guys, something like that. They got
Right,
a
but I
they've
know
got a
he.
real
Oh, sorry.
interesting story. Go ahead.
Okay, but I did know he stepped in early in Facebook. He was an
Yeah.
early angel investor in Facebook. I do
Yeah.
know that. And I
Yeah.
also found out that he was also involved in PayPal. A lot of those Silicon Valley guys run in the same pack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Peter is kind of interesting. I liked it when he was talking. I think he was talking with Eric Weinstein on one of his podcasts, and just seeing like their different viewpoints. So it was just like, okay, you guys work together. That's interesting. All right.
But I guess going back to the original prompt, I mean, yeah, I like active leader.
I'm losing you, Kevin.
I mean, a lot of
Can you hear him,
Just
Matt?
faded.
prodigies. So there's no.
Uh,
Gosh dang. Okay. Okay. How about now? Anything?
Yeah.
Anything? Okay.
eh,
It says your internet connection is unstable. I wish I knew what to do about that, but I don't. This happened in the Zoom meeting I was in right before I jumped in here. I don't know.
No worries, man. You're good now. You're good for the moment.
Okay.
yeah.
So I guess I'll try to be short so I don't ramble on in case it happens again. But no, I think the guy's a good leader. He's a genius. I know everyone's if Bezos is gonna world or whatever, but I don't think so. I think he's a nice guy. Well, I mean, I don't know him personally, but in terms of a business owner or business, he's doing something right, or else he wouldn't be where he is now.
It's so interesting because he rubs me the totally opposite way. Like he's somebody I could never work for.
Yeah. I mean, he seems a little bit too, like I was saying. I mean, just a little bit too rational, logical, and not really putting his heart into it. I mean, I know that he has heart for like the human race, and he wants to see it live. So that's why he wants to go to Mars of all places. I don't know. I'm not going to question his reasoning for that, um, but yeah, I mean, it just doesn't seem like he's going to be the boss that'll understand if I want to take time off to go like for personal development
Right.
or something. You
Well,
know?
that's like
Well,
yeah,
neither
where
is.
he's got to. Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, I was gonna say, well, I don't think. Well, neither is like Bezos. Everyone still likes Bezos, but I don't think he's that kind of guy either. Honestly,
I don't like really like Bezos that much. Yeah, I think his company is just too big, like just flat out, it's too big.
Yeah.
I will say, unless Matt, do you want to continue your thought before I go ahead? Because I
No,
did
you're
have
good,
something
man.
related to
You're good.
Amazon.
No,
I
go
was
for it.
gonna say, I will agree with you that it's too big, but you also can't deny how genius and strategic it was for him to maneuver Amazon into the position that it is now. Because you know how before the crash, everyone said the big finance companies were too big to fail, and they were wrong about those. I think Amazon is the truly too big to fail company because it's so ingrained into our day-to-day operations now that if Amazon were to fail, I think a lot of things would come to a screeching halt, even more than what's going on with COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right if it just stopped, but like that's not, look, name
I'm not
a
so
company
sure.
that's more than 100 years old. Like it just doesn't happen. So at some point, its course will be run.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah, I mean,
regardless of what happens, like at some point it'll
Well,
break.
Disney's almost 100 years old.
Okay. I mean,
oh
like,
yeah,
cool.
I
point
suppose.
goes on.
I'm just saying, at some point these things run their course.
Yeah, I
Well,
think it,
I guess they either run their course or they choose a new path and become reborn somehow. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, it's too big because I mean, I think one of the best critiques of it was Scott Galloway when he was still doing his winners and losers and doing his old L2 behind the desk kind of talk style thing. Um, and he was going into how Amazon just hints at getting into a certain industry, and then all the stock prices of uh, all the other companies in that industry, their stock prices just drop because Amazon was talking about getting into shipping or whatever. So it's just yeah, it's too big to where like it doesn't let our capitalistic structure in the way that we kind of view it as Americans during our last talk. It doesn't let it function the way that we would prefer it to. So for that reason alone, I feel like it should be broken up, and eventually, I feel like people will think about that and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's right. Like we're gonna break this up not because we're socialists or communists, but because we're capitalists and we want, you know, more businesses to emerge."
Kevin, I
So
think where I'm excited,
Absolutely.
about the shift to more the service economy, I actually think it puts Amazon in a poor spot. One of the reasons Amazon is able to compete so well is that, and this is Matt, this is something from Galloway. Basically, they um, every single one of their services, they're basically taking profit margin from selling toilet paper and supporting video streaming and like all these other services. So they're augmenting that as well as AWS obviously, to augment these things. Outside AWS, which is a different beast, but the core business, as you move more into the service model, Amazon actually doesn't get more competitive. I'm not buying more toilet paper because I'm paying for Uber Eats to deliver my food. So I think as that shifts, I don't think their competitive. They still have competitive advantage. I don't think their competitive advantage is as strong as it is in a physical goods world, which may be why the economy is shifting as people try to find, okay, what are people willing to pay for? I don't want to have to, I'm
Mhm.
not willing to work for Amazon profit margins. I need to go, find something a little bit easier.
mhm. I mean, yeah, he's kind
Mhm.
of to use the most dramatic language. I mean, he's after world domination. I mean, he's trying to get as much market share as he can, and damn profits, which any business major is gonna be like, what are you talking about? I guess not now because now they kind of are following
Yeah.
the same kind of
I think
thing out in Silicon Valley, but
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it's about he really kind of saw it. He was like, oh, I have a window because uh, what's it? All these labor unions and stuff like that are kind of like really low. I mean, we have an all-time low of that in America, and a lot of these different policies that are in place that have been lobbied for from other companies have just been so low. So he kind of had an opportunity to kind of do that, and so it was kind of a thing of timing a little bit. I mean, yeah, he probably did work really hard, and he had a really good strategy, but the strategy and all that kind of worked because of the time and because of the climate with the labor pool and all that kind of
good
stuff.
lesson for business, man. That idea needed to match with kind of the market conditions to make it happen.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I mean, and he understood, like, I mean, he understands probably more than any of us, like how the actual like marketing of you know getting to those emotional triggers and selling material goods works. Yeah, I mean, all that kind of stuff, along with like what's going on with like, voice, and how if you use their voice thing, they're going to sell you like their kind of branded batteries versus other people's brands of batteries, and you're not really going to think twice about it. And if you kind of think about it, it's like, why do you need to like even really think that hard about like simple stuff like that? Like, why do I need Duracell over Energizer? I don't know. The bunny? I have no idea. It's like, like I'm gonna put it into my remote and then never think about it for the next, 8 months until it dies, and then I'm just gonna grab the other two from my kitchen drawer. So I feel like a lot of that kind of stuff is just gonna kind of go to the wayside of like we should be automating a lot of that stuff away. I remember I met, sorry to go on such a big rant here, but like, uh, I remember I met Anton Krill, who was a trader on the desk of um, Goldman Sachs in London, and we were talking about Amazon, and he was saying that he's like, yeah, and we were like in a big group of like people that were kind of following him, but he was saying, yeah, but when you get that big, it's like you should become like a public service, like half of your company, or I forget exactly how you wanted to structure it, but it was like you should become a public service where the government will kind of lower the kind of the costs and everything so that you have the operation side of it all kind of going, and you're not having to worry about all the labor issues and stuff like that. You're more regulated, but the efficiency of it in the service to the world that you're providing, which is obviously superior and people want, you can still keep providing that, which I think is a pretty interesting hybrid idea, but I just don't think it'll happen, sadly.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything else to that, but yeah.
Okay. Going back about
We lost you. No, you're probably good.
Anything at all?
Yep.
Okay.
Nope.
Room Amazon antitrust. Nothing really.
I got antitrust. I got antitrust.
Yeah.
Hey, how about now?
Yep.
Is it come back? Is get of antitrust about that?
I heard antitrust.
Yeah, that's all I got.
You broke it. Doesn't want me to. Jeez, can you hear me at all?
Yeah, I can hear you when you say, "Can you hear me at all?"
Yeah, that's the only time I can hear you.
God dang it. Okay. Is is Amazon, are they looking to break it up at some point?
I mean, if we grow a conscience at some point, then yeah, we will break it up.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was talk on the horizon about it or something.
I mean, there was 2 months ago. Kind of everything that's happened, it's gone away. I'm assuming it's someplace still, but
be opposed to that. I mean, for Pete's sake, and I'll climb a little bit up on my soapbox for this. I seriously think they need to go after the Walt Disney Company. I will be the first one to say that. I mean, I am a Disney fan, but that is not the same company Walt Disney founded anymore. It's a shame.
That's interesting to say that. I was listening to Pivot. Matt, do you listen to Pivot? You mentioned Scott Galloway. That's why. Okay, well, they were talking about the movie industry changing, and basically the movie industry, or I'm sorry, the theater industry, and the theater industry potentially be getting cut basically from like 4,500 to like 2,000, 2,500 theaters. And so with that, obviously, A, there's a bunch of surplus theaters out there, and B, like movie distribution's a lot lower. But saying that potentially then, like the theater or the content companies, Disney's of the world, then come in and essentially buy up, theaters and kind of establish, then have whole ownership of the entire movie distribution process. So full supply chain from production to viewership.
Yeah, that
So
could
they might get
happen.
bigger, Kevin.
I think there was the Supreme Court case that struck down the theater thing. That was Paramount case.
Yeah.
Videos like you can't own all these theaters because you have a monopoly, and so yeah, like Paramount, Fox, Universal, they're like, no, you can't own these theaters. And of course, 1948, that's when television started becoming a thing too, and there's all that, yeah. So there was a big shift back then. I think probably the same arguments coming back with the theaters, and
Yeah, maybe.
people have been talking for a long time. Are theaters going to die out? Or streaming going to take over
I wonder
theaters? And it's like, well, yeah.
I wonder what happens if there's consolidation. Does that, if those 2,500 theaters are owned by 2 theater companies, does that conversation change?
Right. Well, I think the film distribution business is a whole other animal in and of itself. I mean, the whole production thing is it's one thing, but then yeah, then when you get into the distribution thing, that's a whole different industry there. So I'm not sure.
Sure.
I guess going back to my original point is like you're talking about owning everything. I know Amazon has its fingers in a lot of pies, but if we're talking about the movie industry now, I think, come on, everyone's got to see Disney's too big here. I mean, they own like 2 television networks. They have 2 of the biggest money making franchises in culture right now. And now they're looking to try and drive Netflix out of business with Disney Plus. It's like, oh, and not to mention they also bought up Fox's library too. And it's like, where's space for the little guys? Like the other people that want to, start their own companies and put out their own products, like and also because everyone knows the Disney brand, they have all the audience, and it's harder for smaller people to try and attract an audience when it's just Disney this, Disney that, And so I think rightfully they are coming close to the legal definition of a monopoly. They have a huge corner on the entertainment market, and it's starting to become a little bit unfair, I think.
Do you think
So
that's
they
any
should-
different? Do you see that as being any different than an Amazon or a Google or a Facebook or an Apple?
No, not at all.
Okay,
I think,
just
well,
wondering.
once again, I think it's because it has to be like, well, are there people watching this growth enough to where they can get the government to act on it? Because like the Sherman Antitrust Act is there for a reason. I mean, so far I've seen it only it's only broken up Standard Oil and Microsoft. So the only in its entire 100 plus years of since it's been passed, it's only been used on 2 monopolies. And it's like, I guess if the right term for it, I guess we're moving towards like an oligopoly style market. But once again, that's just one stop on the road towards total monopoly. I mean, where you have a market that's controlled by only a few big companies. But once again, I don't think even that is conducive to a free market.
Sure.
I think there needs to be greater competition. So anyway, that's my piece on that. I mean, I feel strongly about antitrust, and I think in some respects, yeah, Amazon shouldn't have so much control over the different markets they're in. Disney shouldn't have a huge control over the entertainment market. Google, all that stuff. Google, Facebook, that whole, yeah. I think they should cut back, especially Facebook when you talk about all the data breaches and stuff. I think, yeah, they have a huge monopoly, at least over people's data. And I think that, in some respect, has to come to a stop if they're, selling it to who knows where.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Anyways, I'll end it there.
Matt, you got anything? You got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I guess maybe everything gets so political. I guess to kind of bring it, I guess, full circle. I mean, really, I guess the big thing here is that, you know, lobbying is happening, and that's essentially marketing to politicians. So in a sense, like, I don't think that there's any domain that is untouched by this, you know, kind of big behemoth that is materialistic marketing. So I guess that'll be my last thing, is that, you know, nothing is really free in this regard. That'd be my closing statement.
Cool.
So buyer beware, essentially.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, you get the product you pay for, you get the government you pay for. So
All right, cool. Well, I guess have a good evening, guys.
Yeah, well, sorry for jumping in
Thanks
so
for
late,
yeah,
but
thanks
yeah,
for
it was
making me
good.
feel so good about everything.
It's changing, it's moving forward. Like I said, because I know that Kevin wasn't here, but like I said, I mean, we're moving more towards that. So if you want to be more forward leaning, being more transparent, all that kind of stuff will give you a lot more credibility and would lead a lot more eyeballs to what you're doing, I think. And, you know, society will push against all that marketing blob. And so we'll push forward. It'll turn out good in the end. I just don't know at what point that'll happen. That's just my viewpoint.
All right, cool.
Makes sense.
Not to end on a bad note.
So.
Yeah.
All right, I'll talk to you guys later.
All right. See ya.
All right, y'all.